data coming through to Restream. So it's going through to Twitch.
Fantastic.
Through to Restream. And so it's going through to YouTube. We're good.
There you
We're
go.
good.
It's working.
It is. Okay, my name is TheSuffolkRam.
Skazz, yes.
Welcome to episode 162 of the Randos podcast. And it's our anniversary, Skazz.
Oh, what? Lockdown anniversary?
It's lockdown anniversary. 1 year of lockdown podcasts today. Well, yeah, tomorrow technically, but realistically today.
Yay.
1 year of being sat remotely doing podcasts.
Yeah. And how the world has changed.
Yes.
For me, not really at all. For everyone else, I think there's been something going on that's a bit of an inconvenience, but
I think people who were, I think some people have had a big change. Obviously, working from home has been a big change for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a huge group of people who really it's made no difference. If you've been in retail, it's made sod all difference, really.
Yeah.
Apart from it's now more inconvenient to go to work to wear a mask when you're at work. But realistically, sod all difference is made. So it's just that you can't go out anywhere.
That doesn't really bother me because there's nowhere I want to go.
Well, that's true. That helps. That certainly helps the situation. That's the case.
Yeah.
So, well, how have you been in Skazz?
Alive.
Good. That's all I ask.
I mean, yesterday was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday was the good day. That was fantastic. But how are you?
I'm not too bad. I probably should start us with a little apology. This is an apology to, as I discovered today, to our podcast listeners. You may be wondering why Class Podcast was late getting to you. That was because of a issue with the feed that hadn't gone through properly, and it didn't update iTunes correctly. So if you subscribe to iTunes, you would not have got the podcast. So I'm sorry about that. It should now be fixed.
Do you think what are the metrics some people actually using iTunes these days for podcasts?
I think the majority of our podcasts go through iTunes.
Really?
Yeah. Well, if you've got an iPhone, use Apple Podcasts, which is effectively iTunes.
Oh, fair enough. I wasn't sure if maybe they blended that into like Apple Music or whatever, like everywhere else does.
No, if anything, Apple's separate their stuff now. So, like, audiobooks aren't part of you don't play. If you have audiobooks on your iPhone, you don't play them through, the music player. You play them through the Books app, which is also the app you use to read books, which is very confusing. So, your audiobooks and like normal Kindle type books in the Books app.
Oh, fair enough. I mean, I would never use Apple's books. In fact, actually, random story, it was Apple that put me off Audible years ago. Because Apple were reselling Audible audiobooks back in the day on iTunes. And one of the audiobooks that I desperately wanted to listen to was Going Postal by Terry Pratchett.
Mm-hmm.
And the Apple version, so it says, oh, this is an Audible audiobook, blah, blah, blah. 2/3 of the way through the book, an entire section was missing. And I blamed that entirely on Audible. I was like, nope, Audible audiobooks are absolutely crap. It's got one of the, it's missing a huge section of the book. Just no, like I'll never use Audible ever. And then one day I got a free book for Audible. Tried Audible and found out, no, it wasn't Audible, it was Apple. Apple had stuffed it.
Is it possible that Audible would update it? Because I know Audible do update their books, and perhaps they missed it originally when you first had it, and then they realised their mistake and added it back in.
I had a hooky copy of the book too, and it was fine.
Right, fair enough.
So,
fair enough.
But I would never use iTunes these days anyway, or Apple Books these days, so I don't have a functioning Apple product. But I don't know. If do Apple actually sell books that aren't like they're their own thing?
To be honest, I actually don't use. Um, the only audiobooks I've got are things like not actual what I would consider audiobooks. They're more like so like Radio 4 do those like some comedy sketch shows, and when they put them up, they class them as audiobooks.
Oh, right, okay.
So that's what I've got. I've got like the Mitchell Web Sound as audiobooks, but I wouldn't class as audiobooks personally. But they class them like that on iTunes, so we pick them up. That's how they come through as.
All right, okay.
So only all my audiobooks, I actually my actual audiobooks, as in a book that's been translated to been read out, I usually get through Audible with my free credits.
Yeah.
I don't think I think I've spent virtually nothing on Audible since I've ever used, apart from subscription. I've ever actually bought anything on there. And it's all been just through free credits, and obviously when they do their 2-for-1 deals, it's great because you just buy two. I actually have, that's tell a lie. I have twice bought additional credits.
I've been buying a lot more additional credits recently.
Yeah, because it just makes sense. Why on earth would you buy unless the book the case where they're cheaper? Why on earth would you buy a book when you just buy credits?
Yeah. It was, in a lot of cases, it seems really silly because some of the books I wanted to read, yeah, it's £30. But I will say this is one of the reasons why I would have gone for like Apple's audiobooks or Google's audiobooks in the past over Audible, in that the outright fee to buy the audiobook, say on Google or Apple, would have only been about £7, which was about that of an Audible credit. But if you didn't have an Audible subscription, you would then be paying something like 20, 30, 40 quid for some books. I was like, that's just not worth it. Like, I could go and actually buy the book on CD for that price. Yeah. So, you know, but I will say, I don't, well, maybe I probably shouldn't say, but one of the things that I've been doing recently with Audible, because I've been getting so many more books, I've actually been downloading the audiobooks and then stripping the DRM from them.
Oh, I do that,
and it's absolutely fantastic, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. I do that. I've stripped all the DRM. It's very easy to do.
Yeah,
and I do that. All the audiobooks all down. Every time I get an audiobook, I download it. It's on. I've got a media hard drive. I've not got my file server. I've now got a media hard drive set on the file server, which has all my music on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so any PC on the network can just access that server, and it's rather than have a copy on 4 different machines, it's just on one.
Yeah, that's what I started to do recently, but because I've got so much data and I don't have a file server with enough storage on it, I'm having to be a bit choosy with what I put and where. Yeah. But I'm quite
lucky because I've always been pretty choosy anyway. I don't tend to have a huge. I mean, I know people who have gigabytes and gigabytes of music. I don't.
Well, I have terabytes and terabytes of music. Yeah. So I mean, a chunk of my audio collection's about 4 terabytes.
Oh, no one near that.
Then I've got home video wise, you're talking well over 20 teras. Blu-ray rips, you're probably talking a lot.
Yeah.
My anime DVD backups were about 8 or 16 teras.
Yeah.
So I've got a lot of stuff. Yeah, I've got a lot of stuff.
If my music library is pushing a couple of gigs, I'd be amazed.
Wow.
I have so little. I'm so picky when it comes to music.
Mm-hmm.
There's very few bits of music that I actually buy. Because most of the time, the music, most sort of like what I call mainstream music, tends to come on the radio out enough that I don't go, oh, I really want to listen to that right now.
Yeah, sure, I get
the
you.
Stuff I tend to buy is stuff that doesn't appeal on the radio. So things like game soundtracks, I have quite a few of those.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to buy those on CD. I've got a collection box of 5 Samurai Showdown soundtracks. And then I imported the newest games soundtrack on CD so I could rip those. The Splatoon soundtracks, I imported those from Japan. That was fun, you know. I tend to rip like anything I can get. If I've got it on CD, I will flat out just rip it. Although I'm kind of in the middle of a format swap at the moment.
Yeah.
So if I want to listen at home, I like to have as high quality as possible, and I tend to go FLAC with that.
Yeah.
But if I'm out and about, then I tend to convert to either OGG or Opus. So Vorbis or Opus. And at the moment, I'm kind of saying, like, if I have a device that will play Opus, I'm going Opus all the way, because damn, those file sizes are small and the audio quality is pretty good.
Yeah. I'm not an audio file, so they're all just MP3s.
Fair enough, fair enough. Yeah, but there's nothing.
I honestly, I can't tell when I've listened to like FLAC or RAV, supposedly the non-lossy file types. I listen to compressors. I can't tell. I
Sure.
just can't. I ain't got the ears for it, so I
It,
get to save my storage space as a result.
it largely depends on the type of music you're listening to. So, and it's usually only subtleties. It's kind of like the thump sounds in the low end and this kind of whiny. It's more in sustain, where you'll find MP3 kind of loses it. So when a note is supposed to hang in the air, all of a sudden it'll kind of cut off or sound like it's being drowned underwater. That's when you really kind of notice it. It isn't that big of a deal, to be honest. I don't care what anyone says. It isn't actually that big of a deal, but I would still prefer to have something closer to the CD file.
I totally get that. I totally understand why people like that, but I haven't got the ears good enough to hear it. So.
Sure. I mean, but the thing is, though, when I'm at home, I've got like higher quality headphones on, and it points out those kind of imperfections a lot faster. They become a lot clearer. Yeah. Whereas when I'm out of the house, I've got a cheap pair of Bluetooth headphones on. And Bluetooth isn't a great way to listen to music anyway.
No.
So an MP3 file or an OGG file, I can carry a crap ton more music in a lot less space, and it works well with the headphones and that. So I tend to have a selection of so I'll go, here's my top, say, 50 albums this month, convert them from FLAC to OGG, pop them on a media player, and I'm done.
I think you've actually hit that on the head for me as well, as I tend to listen to most stuff, the audio stuff I tend to listen to when I'm working, mainly when I'm working on the farm. I tend to listen to that. But because I work on a farm and, it's mucky, it gets dirty, stuff gets damaged, I don't use expensive headphones, because if they get dropped in a mucky but I can't find them, I don't want to just say the money's gone. So I have a $5 or $6.99 pair of Bluetooth headphones I bought from Asda. Yeah. And that's what I will use, because if I drop it, it doesn't worry me. I can just go buy another pair.
Yeah, because if the connection's strong enough on the headphones to the device, then I wouldn't say there's even a problem. I mean, right now I'm using a set of JVC, I think they're called something like gummies or something like that, like really cheap, couple quid earbuds. I use them on a really cheap MP3 player, because I'm having that kind of smartphone-y interweb net detox kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I went really back to basics, and it's been all right. Is the quality up there? No. Can I tell the difference? Yeah, but I mean, if I just want to listen to some tunes or listen to an audiobook, good enough.
And that's how I feel. So when I think also you might, as you're more, I know you're more into audio than I am. When there's a lot of background noise, and you can't totally filter out, actually the quality is not quite so critical, so you can't pick it up so much.
Sure.
I don't know if that's the case. It just feels
to
the case.
To a degree.
It's not a silent environment I work in, so I tend to always hear a bit of background noise. So as long as I can hear enough to hear what is being said or sung or whatever, I appreciate it's not. I'm not listening in silence, as it were.
Sure.
Because if you were in a silent room with no background noise, then I would have thought you'd be able to pick out the differences more.
Oh yeah, sure.
Than in a more noisy environment.
Mm-hmm. And I will say actually as well that noise cancelling, active noise cancelling in some headphones, that doesn't always do the trick for me either. To be honest, I got a pair quite recently of headphones that have active noise cancelling. It's magical. It really is. I mean, if I'm in my house and people are talking in the room next door, chances are I can't hear them anymore. Or if I'm walking down the street, like loud traffic noise just kind of becomes a shh in the background. I'm like, oh, okay, fair enough. And then you take them off, and all of a sudden you can hear like lorries going past you as if you're on a motorway kind of thing. But even then, I'm just like, really? I mean, plus they're Bluetooth, so it's like, the quality isn't really there to start with, so
Yeah.
it's
And
not
that's
that big of a
actually
deal.
that's another thing. I wouldn't have noise cancelling because, again, the environment to use them is a dangerous
Oh
environment.
yeah,
So
for sure. I wouldn't
I
recommend
need
it
to
for
be able
that
to
kind of stuff.
hear a piece of machinery coming towards me, or I need to be able to hear it, or I hear someone shouting. I need to be able to hear them.
Yeah,
So I wouldn't touch for that reason, for a safety reason, actually.
of course.
Mainly my own, but at the same time, if someone got caught or something needed help, I need to be able to hear them.
Yeah.
So I tend to have earbuds, and also you get some deadening from it. Of course you do,
Yeah, sure.
but not enough. I tend to just use Bluetooth ones. Only reason being is cables get in the way
Yeah,
when
don't
you're
get me
moving,
started.
lifting. The amount of times I used to obviously have cables all the time for Bluetooth, sort of became a big thing, and I was constantly ripping them out my ears,
Yeah.
constantly.
I mean, I still do.
So
I still do. I
yeah,
prefer a
yeah,
wire, but there's like occasionally I'll snag them, or if I'm out walking the dog with a pair of wired headphones on, they'll get ripped out of my ears if like I see another dog or whatever. It's just
yeah. It's just frustrating. So I prefer one because I don't have to recharge them.
yeah.
But to be honest, my little cheap pair of Bluetooths, they last all morning, go back to the car for lunch, plug them in, charge them over lunch, and they last all afternoon. So
Sure. I will
they do the job.
say, I will say that Bluetooth has only really recently started to become reliable enough, in my opinion. Because I have a couple of older phones here. So as part of my kind of smartphone detox, I've been using a BlackBerry. And I know someone's going to say, but that's a smartphone. Sure, if it had app support, which
Yeah.
it does to a degree, but not a huge amount. And I mean, like, I just remove the apps that you don't want, and it's just so I can I don't have to T9 text. But literally, even a phone that's only like say 5 years old or 3 years old, Bluetooth audio is absolutely shite. You put your phone in your pocket, and all of a sudden you're getting dropouts all the time. Whereas now, I mean, maybe 3 years has been a bit too brutal, but maybe 5 years old or whatever, a few years old. You'd put you get a new phone though. You can put your phone in the middle of the house and walk around your house with Bluetooth headphones on, no dropouts, no nothing, and it's fantastic. So, I mean, realistically for me, Bluetooth has only been a thing for a while.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how far it's come, especially considering when you think about it. Like Apple didn't even want Bluetooth audio a long old time ago, and yet now they're basically forcing everyone to have it.
Yeah. I think my first pair of Bluetooth headphones would have been probably about 3 years ago, actually, so 3, 4 years ago. I got a free pair
Oh yeah,
um, from work. They gave us all headphones for free, so I got a free pair, which is actually what actually made me turn towards Bluetooth because I'd always had one at that point and it was frustrating, but I was like, Bluetooth, that's going to hang on to be charging batteries and all that sort of stuff and all that sort of stuff. But these free ones, that's what I was able to turn towards. So actually, these are pretty convenient. But then also, I used to always have my phone in my pocket, so they only had to be able to transmit a meter and a meter. And
I mean, well,
they could
I
do
tend to
that.
find that even if you have them in your pocket, I used to have dropouts for Bluetooth. But I mean, the first, I've just had a look, the first pair that I had that were actually any good with a phone that I had that was any good was back in 2018. So I'm not actually entirely sure what phone I was even running back in 2018, but
The the worst device I've had for dropouts is my car.
oh yeah,
Yeah, often it doesn't go but half an hour doesn't go by without a brief for a split, only for a second, but also it'll just be music. Also, just go quiet for a second, then it'll just come back.
yeah.
And the phone doesn't even move. The phone sits where it is. It's not like the phone's going to have range. So
See, that would drive me nuts. I mean, I've got I've got wireless headphones. So I've got a Corsair pair and an Asus pair for just like so I can do Discord chats and stuff, but be away from my PC kind of thing. And fuck me, I could be sat there, just sat here. I could have the fucking dongle on an extension right next to my face, and every now and then I'll just go fade out, and I'm like, hello, hello, what's going on, hello, and then the conversation comes up, like, what's up, Skazz? Like, fucking headset is just disconnected. Does my head in. Absolutely drives me insane.
My biggest annoyance, actually, of my Bluetooth in my car. Now, I don't know if it's the car at fault or the phone.
Right.
Is that if I walk away, so let's say I have my car switched on, so it's got Bluetooth, so the phone wants to connect to it, as it does.
Mm-hmm.
I've always got my headphones on. So I'll get out of the car, but I'll go check a fence. I'll leave the car running because you're only going to be out for a minute, and it's just, and particularly in the winter time, you want to keep the heater running and so forth. So when you step out, you get back in a nice warm vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
So you get out of the car, you walk away, and you say use my headphones. And you walk away, and you're checking the fence and so forth. And at some point, you come slightly back within range of the car, and it'll automatically redivert everything to the car. The car takes precedence over my headphones.
That's annoying.
It is fucking annoying. And because some Metropolis, it also does it. If you, let's say, where it's really more annoying is, and as I say, I don't listen to audiobooks when I'm working. I have a phone in my pocket. I don't have my headphones on. The car's playing an audiobook. I pause it. I get out. Phone's in my pocket. Haven't got my headphones on. Walk, do something. Sometimes I'm doing something. Well, come back. I hear, why is there talking coming from my car? And at some point, it's reconnected back to the car. I just started playing again.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I've gone forward several minutes where it's been playing.
Sure.
And it's like, well, why would you do that? I've paused you.
Why
did you? I don't know if that's the phone size or anything. Oh, it'll be helpful. The car saying, hey,
I would say
playing.
it's a combination of the two, on the grounds that every time your phone goes out of range of the car and then comes back in range of the car, it reconnects and sees it as a new device because it's the newest device that it's tried to connect to. It's like, this is the one you want to play sound out of.
But you think so, but surely the device I'm actively using at that moment must be the device I want to use.
Yeah, it's just trying to be helpful. I mean, I have that too. Like when people turn on our TV, I have a pair of Bluetooth headphones. I've got like so many different pairs of headphones, but I have a pair of headphones connected up to my TV set, so that if people are asleep and I want to listen to a film, just pop my headphones on, I sit on the sofa, and that's really cool. But I often find that, so I think I connected that up to my MP3 player, my media player. And I'm just wandering about, listening to some tunes. Some fucker will turn on the telly and my headphones will go, oh, hey, do you want to listen to that? And I'm like, no, I don't want to listen to daytime news. No. Get that shit out of my ears.
Yeah. Surely the fact that I'm already playing something for you tells you that I'm happy with what's being played through it.
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't think that's how the person is intended to be used as.
I wish you could give it a priority list.
It must be simply, if you're already doing something, don't change.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if it's an old leftover from the early days protocol when also you only have one Bluetooth device.
Maybe.
Let's face it, back in the day, you might only have your car or a dock might be the only Bluetooth device you've got.
Mm-hmm.
What really gets me is that they can connect to multiple devices at once. They say they can't, but they can, because the Apple Watch connects via Bluetooth.
My expensive noise cancelling headphones will connect to multiple devices.
Yeah, I was told, I remember reading once, that the protocol was designed so you couldn't do that, but it's clearly a lie.
Mm-hmm.
Or they've updated the patch to the newer version, they say you can. But in that case, why don't I just play through both? There you go, problem solved.
Yeah.
I'm not a Bluetooth designer, so...
Yeah, that's it.
First world problems and all that. So... Anyways, Skazz, what have you been up to?
Well, I did mention that yesterday was the good day. And I've been saying now for months that there's only been one thing that I've really been interested in being released game-wise for 2021.
Yes?
I have no release date on that yet. It's coming, we just don't know when and on what. Although I have been told that East games are coming to Google Stadia, so it's not dead yet, despite what people say. So... I just haven't got a release date on East 9 yet. But Monster Hunter Rise, released yesterday for Nintendo Switch. And fuck me, it's beautiful. For a Nintendo Switch game, it looks good and it plays great. With one downside. It's modern Monster Hunter. It's not classic Monster Hunter. So, to go back over my rant with Monster Hunter World, traditionally, Monster Hunter has been a very deliberate series. The idea being that you're a little hunter, caveman, geezer, or whatever time period you're in. Generally, you look like a caveman. You know, you've got like, you're wearing skins and all that kind of stuff. Your weapons are made out of bone or other primitive materials. And you have to just basically go out, prep yourself, go out, kill big monster, harvest it for parts, upgrade your gear, go out and kill bigger monsters. And if you wanted to heal, as an example, it would take time. You could literally go 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. And if you hadn't chugged that potion or herb or whatever it was that you were using to heal, and the monster would, the second you hit heal, the monster would aggro you, you'd get hit. You would just stand there. The animation would play that you're putting the potion or item to your mouth, and then your character would like kind of do a flex to say, I've healed. That's another way to just kind of make you stand there kind of thing. And then you can't move again until that animation's over. So there was a lot of chances, a lot of opportunities for the monster to punish you for being a cocky dick if you hadn't already learnt the monster's attack patterns kind of thing. So, then with Monster Hunter World, just a simple example anyway, but healing, you can walk with your fucking potion. You can't run with it, but you can walk with it. So it's like, oh yeah, you know, monster's about to attack me, I'm just gonna, you know, walk to the left a bit. The monster then charges at you, straight line charge, and it misses. It got so much easier just for little changes like that. Harvesting.
To be fair, in real life, you can walk and drink something.
Which is fair, but that's not what made Monster Hunter a challenge.
I know what you're saying.
Or harvesting, okay? So let's say you want to pick honey, herbs, whatever. In Monster Hunter 1, again, the game would punish the shit out of you if you were cocky enough to try and do it whilst you were fighting a big monster. Okay? So you'd then have to go down to the ground to where like the bush or the plant is or whatever. You dig around the bush, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, and then it would say, oh, you've got the item. If you're doing that when the monster's rampaging, you are dead. In Monster Hunter World, just run. Just sprint full speed, right? And then just keep spamming the kind of harvest button or the search button or whatever it is. And you could be running full speed and your arm just swipes out. You'll like stagger step to half speed for like maybe a second. Grab the item you want. That item will then be auto-crafted into like a potion or an antidote or whatever it is you've just gone and grabbed. And you keep on going. You haven't had to stand there and combine or craft. It's all been done for you in a split second. And that really irked me because it made World so easy. A friend and I went back to Monster Hunter Classic. We went to Monster Hunter Freedom, which was the portable Monster Hunter 1. And my god, that game is fucking balls hard. Like, if you haven't played a classic Monster Hunter game in a long time, going back to that style of Monster Hunter where the game just says, mate, no, wah, and you're dead, is a bit of a shock. Well, Rise is modern Monster Hunter. It's Monster Hunter World style. And I'll be honest with you, it's not bad. It isn't bad. But Monster Hunter World...
Have they changed anything about the sword mechanics? They made it like more like the old Monster Hunter, or they left it as it was?
No, it's as is, if not easier. Okay. So you have extra... So the reason I find it weird that they've gone the new way, and it shouldn't be, because I've explained the cash grab scenario, right? With Monster Hunter Generations on the Switch.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Just quickly, Monster Hunter Generations was a DS game. A 3DS game. And Monster Hunter games tend to have a portable version and a home console version. They have done for years. When the Switch came out, Japan got the Japanese version of Monster Hunter Generations, which was called Monster Hunter Double Cross. Okay? We already had a Western version of Generations back in like 2016, something like that. So we already had a translation. But they didn't release a Western version for the Switch. They just didn't. Monster Hunter World comes out a year later and sells phenomenally well. And it was at that point that I think to myself, Capcom has realised the Switch is selling very well, World is selling very well, and they're sitting on a translation that they've already completed. Let's release Monster Hunter Generations on Switch to the rest of the world. Rake in that cash. So it was an old Monster Hunter game, an old style Monster Hunter game that came out after, technically, the theme had changed. You know, World had broken new ground and we went back to classic Monster Hunter randomly. So it was a bit of a toss-up as to whether or not Rise was going to be new or old. Well, they went new. World players think that Rise is too easy. And I think World players need to shut the fuck up because World was redonkulously easy to start with. So, in Monster Hunter Rise, it has a Japanesey Monster Hunter theme. So normally you'd be in like a primitive village. Now you're in like, you've got pagodas, cherry blossoms everywhere. Your characters are kind of more dressed like ninjas and samurai than normal, which is a look they've gone for before with Monster Hunter Portable Third, which was a Japan-only release. And it introduces a new sidekick character, which is a dog, which you can ride into battle. So you can ride it around, which is a new mechanic that you've not had before. And the dog can also provide support, so it can do attacks as well.
How small is your character if they can ride a dog into battle?
Well, the fact is that the dog's about 9 feet tall.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, the dog's about the same size as some of the dinosaurs that you fight.
That's more like a wolf than anything
Yeah,
else.
pretty much. But I mean, mine looks like a dopey spaniel, so, you know.
Is it called Charlie?
No, I've called him What About Me. So traditionally you'd normally have you'd have a single helper, and that's a palico, which is a cat, and they'll heal you, attack monsters, stuff like that.
That's unrealistic. No cat would heal you.
Exactly. So, because there are other palicos in the game that steal shit from you, which is very much like a cat.
That's more realistic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
a real palico would push something off a table edge and onto your head.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it works. Or like, the enemy palicos will rob that one item that you desperately need, and you're like, you little fucker, as you then get sideswiped by a big monster, and the little bastard is just taking your last potion.
What it should do is, as you're laying dying on the ground, it should come and lay on top of you to get the last of your warmth.
That's pretty much how it works. That is pretty much how it works. They are cheeky little bastards, and they get in the way, no end. So yeah, you start now with two helper characters, the dog and the cat. Normally you'd only start with the cat. So people are complaining, oh, it's too easy now because you've got the dog. You've got two companion characters right from the start. Well, you unlocked a second companion character in most of the other Monster Hunter games anyway. It's just you've got one from the start. And it's not like the companion characters actually do a huge amount of damage either. They do like 5 points of damage, where my sword as it stands does like 70. So it's not massively easy. They're not
that helpful.
They're basically what they're there for is to be an aggro magnet. They're there to take the heat from you if you needed a break to heal. But because it's world mechanics and you can already, kind of strut around and heal, you don't need it. So there's that. Items are now displayed on the map by default. So you don't need to look for harvest points like honey, ore point, mining points or anything like that. They are all listed on the map. You don't search for anything. In Monster Hunter World, they introduced the idea of you would track a monster. So in classic Monster Hunter games, they told you nothing. You go into a map, you've got to find the monster. Look for the fucking thing. Okay? In Monster Hunter World, it was, well, if you can find the monster's footprints, like if you can find a couple of them, and they're usually in the same place on the map every time, just run around like you do, full speed, keep mashing that search button or the gather button or whatever, and if you come across footprints, we will analyze them, sarcastic air quotes, analyze them, and then when you have enough data on the monster, we will have these firefly things that will go off and lead you to the monster. They will point you to where you need to go. In some cases, that really sucks, because the game got really easy because you didn't have to hunt for the monster anymore. You used to have to find it, paintball it, and then hope your paintball didn't wear off before you killed the damn thing, so if not, you'd have to search for it again. With these little bugs, they would constantly track it once you figured out where it was kind of going to be by finding the footprints. As I say, like in World, that was, and to a degree, was kind of necessary for it to point out where things were, because World was a very pretty game, and the like items and things would just kind of blend into the scenery. So they needed something to kind of highlight where things were. You know, Monster Hunter has traditionally looked like a PlayStation 2 game, because it started on PlayStation 2. They never really upgraded the graphics any. And so, like, I don't know, a herb bush would be like, there's this bland, flat surface with a tree coming out of it. And you're like, oh, hey, there's some herb. In Monster Hunter World, there was grass blowing in the wind and all this stuff. And you're like, shit, where's the herbs at, man? Where's the herbs? So to have something to show you where things were was kind of understandable. It was a bit annoying, but it was understandable. In Rise, I was like, mate, it's there. It's there. It's on the map. It's there. You want it? It's there. You want to find the monster? Don't worry. We're all going to do it. It's there. We're going to just tell you it's there on the map. Just go to it. And so, you know, it's easier in that sense. Like, there's one less step for me to find the monster now, but you know, World was already ridiculously easy. As a classic player, I just have to get over the fact that people don't like a challenge anymore. So, you know, and the other big change is there's two more, I guess. They introduced a grappling hook in World that you could use to like climb things quicker. You now have that in Rise. Rise has a lot of aerial combat, so you can kind of use like a grappling hooky. I don't remember what it's called, but it's like this bug thing that you can use to kind of string shot your way onto cliff edges and stuff like that. And you can use like ninja running skills to run up walls and stick to another thing and jump over and kind of grappling hook onto another object. It's very kind of fly aroundy kind of stuff. So they introduced that, like an advanced version of the Monster Hunter World grappling hook. And then you can stun a monster to be able to ride it. Like, actually physically ride it. So in previous Monster Hunters, after Monster Hunter 4, you could mount a monster and stab it and stab it and stab it whilst it tried to shake you off to do big damage. And then if you succeeded, it would knock it, you would topple it and it would fall over, and then you could do more damage to it. If you didn't, though, you'd just fall off and it would then go on attacking you as normal. In Rise, though, you don't just mount it and topple it. You mount it, ride it, and can use it to attack other monsters for a brief period of time. They do say as well, you can do this skill that does massive damage with that monster to another monster. But I looked at it and I was like, that barely does more damage than what my basic attack does. Or you can get the monster to run at the wall and hurt itself. And again, for me, using my weapon class, it did fucking nothing compared to what I would do just wailing on it anyway. So it just seemed like a bit of a waste of time to me. But those are the big changes. The game itself is beautiful. It looks fantastic for a Monster Hunter game on the Nintendo Switch. The fact that they managed to port world-style graphics, world-style mechanics to the Switch is... I was gobsmacked. Absolutely gobsmacked. The game looks fantastic. It's easily one of the best looking games on Nintendo Switch. Music, a solid Monster Hunter tunes. Story, there's no point. It's Monster Hunter story. Get out there, go kill monster, protect village, job done.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's actually really fun. I think Monster Hunter World just came a little too soon for me.
Yeah.
You
Turned
know,
into a shock.
and it probably also didn't help that my PlayStation 4 was dying at the time. So every time we'd do a big hunt, my PlayStation 4 would crash, and then I'd have to do the hunt again. But none of my mates would have to do it because they'd already gone through and saved. It would always crash just before I had to save. So, but in Rise, it's been fantastic. Combat is smooth, it's fluid, it's quick. I don't like the idea that they've taken away a lot of the search kind of aspect to it. They've reduced the difficulty quite a bit, but if you just want to run around wailing on monsters, it's great.
So in the old games, from like initially starting a hunt to find the monster, how long would you reckon that would take you?
So you're generally given about 50 minutes to do a hunt in Monster. They will give you a 50-minute time limit, and it's either to kill the monster or run out of time or die. In Monster Hunter Rise, I don't think I've had a fight that has lasted more than a single one-on-one fight. I don't think I've had a single one that's lasted anywhere near 20 minutes, 15 minutes-ish. On one, I did 2 monsters in 20 minutes.
See, that's to me. If the game's got the word hunter in it, part of the fun of it is the hunting, the tracking it down, finding it.
Yeah.
That sort of strikes me of what the sort of point of it is to do. I mean, I've played hunting games, and that's the more important bit is actually hunting the animal down rather than actually the sort of actual combat at the end.
Yeah.
So
they took all of that out of Monster Hunter World. There was very little hunt left, to be honest. Whereas in well, like as an example now as well, like one of the old tactics used to be that, so if you're playing classic, the map was split into segments. So you'd have like, segments 1 through 9 or 1 through 12 or whatever. And you'd all break up at the start. So let's say there's 3 of us. Say there's me, you and Zebra on a game night, right? And I don't know, I'll say, right, we're starting in 1. You go left. I'll go straight up the middle. Zebra go right. Whoever gets there first would then call out to the other players. You could beacon out. Like there's like a chirp, like a radar kind of beep that you can do. And that'll show on the map where you've beaconed out. So then people go, that's where the monster is. Or if you're in a call, you go, yeah, I'm in 7. Monster's in 7. And then everyone kind of comes to 7. Then you'd have to paintball it. So that would then mark it and put it on the map. And then people could follow it whilst that paintball was active. Because sometimes a monster can just take off. If it's a flying monster, it'll just take off and it will fuck off along a path that you can't follow and go to a different zone. And then you'd have to hunt it again. If you've paintballed it, well, the map tells you where it is. Okay? In World and in Rise, you don't have to do that anymore. It just tells you where the monster is. So in Rise, specifically, like straight away, like we start the fight. Yeah, mate, monster's on 5. Everyone just runs straight to 5. It's kind of taken that thrill out of it. Like, shit, there it is! Who's going to find it? Are they going to be able to hold their own until the team catches up with them kind of thing? That's not a thing anymore. That one little thrill is gone for me.
It sounds to me that we need to add the Monster Hunter game into our list of games we need to play for games night.
And we can do it because the PlayStation Portable games can be emulated. Classic Monster Hunter 1 through 3 can be emulated. And that has net play. And it works quite well because I've already done it. Me and my mate Divine were playing it a couple of weeks ago. Monster Hunter World is always on sale on PC, pretty much. You can get it for as cheap as like £12 now, I think, for the base game. So if you want to try both, that's always an option.
$24.99 on Steam at the moment.
Is that with Iceborne or just the base game?
This is Monster Hunter World.
Oh, okay.
By Monster Hunter World, $24.99. Monster Hunter World Iceborne Digital Deluxe, $41.99. Iceborne Master Edition, $49.99, and Iceborne Master Edition Digital Deluxe, $57.99.
All right, give me 1 second. So let's have a look.
That's on Steam. I thought it was anywhere else. I just had to have Steam open, so I thought I'd quickly have a look.
Right, Monster Hunter World PC. Oh wow, that's gone up. That's actually gone up. That's absolutely terrifying. That's weird. Depending on where Monster Hunter World PC EU $13.99.
Oh, where's that off?
CD keys.
Oh,
or
good old
seven
CD keys.
$17.99 for the full world universe. I don't know if there's really a difference if it's region locked or whatever, but
Well, it's now on my wish list. There you go.
fantastic. So I mean, it will be. It's worth playing. It's a fantastic co-op game. I mean, I played classic Monster Hunter games, so the first 3 by myself. You know, back when we were in college,
Yes.
that's when I started playing Monster Hunter.
I'm sure you talked about it at some point while we were
Yeah,
in college.
because the only people I knew that had PSPs, it was me, Scrivs, and Weasel, and none of them had Monster Hunter. I eventually got Scrivs into Monster Hunter, but we never really hung out much, so we didn't get much of a chance to play. So I would largely play Monster Hunter solo. It wasn't until the one on the Nintendo Wii that I actually got to play with other human players. And that was fucking great. It's absolutely brilliant. And now the fact that you can emulate these games and and play them online is brilliant. Absolutely amazing. Yeah, I would say we'll start with Monster Hunter Freedom, which is the first one on PlayStation Portable. Have a go at that on game night at some point, and then eventually work our way up to Monster Hunter World. And then you can then tell me if you think it's easier or harder, or which you prefer. Monster Hunter World has a lot of quality of life stuff in it. Same with Monster Hunter Rise. I can't complain about that, but in giving people a lot of quality of life stuff, they've kind of taken away that shine.
Yeah, there's a balance. There's quality of life, and there's taking away some of the sort of point.
Yeah.
I mean, I look like the original Stalker game, for example, like Call of Pripyat, is what I would say to play. There's a lot of nitty-gritty stuff in there, which actually I could see if it was given to, say, a more Western developer, would remove or streamline or take away. Because there seems to be a fascination with modern games that you have to keep it like really streamlined and simple. The core bits have to be, straightforward and simple. We can't let people possibly get distracted from the shooty part. So let's make all the sort of more nitty gritty stuff. The fact that you have a grid based infantry in Stalker, which means you don't just deal with weight, but also physical shape of something. There are exceptions to the rule, but vast majority of modern games just don't bother doing that. They just go by weight. Most of the time, you'll get weight, and if you're over encumbered, you just can't sprint anywhere.
Yeah.
And to be fair, Stalker did that as well, where you just couldn't sprint. But being caught, not being able to sprint out in the open was just fatal. You were just asked to get exposed to death. So it wasn't there was a real risk reward there. I mean, whereas in something like, say, Skyrim, if you're over encumbered, well, I'll just take a bit longer to get back to the village. That's no problem.
No fast travel.
Yeah, it's not going to be but I'm never very far away from a merchant, so it's not really going to be a problem.
See, that's the thing with Monster Hunter as well. Like in classic Monster Hunter, like you had to, so you have a stamina bar, and that's constantly going down. Like over a period of time, you'll have, like, say, a full stamina bar, then it'll go to 3/4, half, and when that goes down, you can't sprint. That's also linked to your dodge roll, right? So you then have to start managing resources. So you've only got 50 minutes. The fight might take, with, say, weapons that are going to match up to that monster's level, fight might take half an hour, maybe a bit longer. And you're like, well, I could try and scab getting these, like, say, these healing herbs and this honey in the zone with the monster at the same time as the fight, risking losing more health. Or do I break away, risk losing time, risk losing the monster to go and get the stuff whilst I'm safe?
Yeah.
in Monster Hunter World and in Monster Hunter Rise, mate, I'm just going to run at it and spam that grab button because I can just do it anytime.
There's nothing wrong with making games slightly unfair, even quite heavily. There's nothing wrong putting these constraints on people, making the game unfair. I think some game developers are scared that they're worried that people pick it up and bounce off it.
Yes.
And that's true, actually. I think that comes with, I think there's an age restricted to. I think when you're younger, you tend to be more like that with games. You tend to bounce off. In general,
Sure.
not everybody's the same. Whereas I think as you get older, you're more tolerant to actually. There's a reason why I think you don't see so many young people playing things like Flight Simulator or DCS or very complicated, use a lot of practice and time to get into it. So you don't see as many young people. They tend to be more, and I don't mean old in 30s, 40s or 50s. I mean sort of, late 20s. More, you've got. I think you see that they tend to be more into those sort of games because there needs to be a reward loop. And actual fact, for those games, the reward loop happens really late in when you've actually got the hang of how to sort of just take off or what have you. And I think that's what game developers are more scared about, because they're worried that if they put a game out there where people just bounce off it, they'll just say it's crap.
Yeah.
And they'll go on Facebook, Reddit, whatever the other is, and just paste, this game's crap, I was all playing it. It's like, oh, what's sure of this all sort of stuff. And that creates that negative feeling, which is practice. So you almost want to make him, and I know it sounds like that's a very old man argument. Oh, in my day, it's this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I tend to notice that PC games tend to be less like that. And I think that's because, in general, the average PC gamer is older
than
the average console gamer. And that's always been the case for a long time. That's been the case. So they're more tolerant to that type of thing. And that's what I like. I love games like Stalker, which are deeply unfair.
Yeah.
And you will just die constantly. But when you succeed, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
I love games like that. I love games where, you can just let's say things like save and that sort of stuff, but I love games like that. But I do also enjoy the games where it's just sort of into it more. But I just, without saying like a lot, man, I feel that's where game developers have started to move towards and are encouraged to enjoy it, and probably more by publishers than anything else.
Yeah.
Because I could see why. I mean, the way you describe, look like, say, vanilla World of Warcraft compared to a modern MMO.
Yeah.
It is. I don't think it'd be, for a lot of games, I don't think it'd just be tolerable. They just would bounce off it.
Yeah, a lot of players even tried Classic. They went back to Classic and were like, we can't do this. It's too hard. It takes too long, and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, we haven't got time to invest in getting good at this game. And it's like, I understand that. I do understand that, but sometimes, there's that thrill, as you say, that fucking, oh yeah, I've done it. I've finally done it. And, it was a challenge and I had to work and get good.
I think it's also a case of this is going to sound weird, but there was less choice.
Yeah.
There was actually less, because now, big releases are generally competing with each other more frequently. Now there's always going to be a new release come out and it's got to compete. So it's got to compete and it's got to be competitive and fun and grab you instantly type thing. Whereas back in the day, you might you spend your hard-earned pocket money on a copy of World of Warcraft, and that's it. That's all you've got. Mm-hmm. Your subscription, that's it. You pay for your subscription, that's all you've got.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So you've got to get something out of it. So you tend to stick with it. And that sounds more like a hostage situation than anything. But I think what it meant is you got used to sort of actually things are hard. And it is weird, actually, if you play a lot more modern games and you go back to look at things like Rainbow Six, went to Rainbow Six.
Yeah.
Original Rainbow Six, or even up to say Raven Shield on the PC, because I know consoles were always different to the PC versions, but even the consoles were like, you couldn't. The early ones, you were like, one shit, you were dead, you're gone.
Yeah.
Compared to modern Rainbow Six, as soon as they put regenerating health in Rainbow Six, I was like, oh, I'm not interested anymore.
Yeah, they went Master Chief on it.
Yeah, I'm not. As soon as it got sort of like, so Xbox ruined Rainbow Six, in my opinion. That's where they sort of like went down the route of, okay, so there's no planning phase. You're just your elite team of soldiers who go in, in a linear level. You don't care you have no plan of what you're going to do. You're just going to go through it because like that's how special forces work apparently. And oh yeah, if you get shot, just duck behind cover for a minute, so you'd be fine.
Admittedly, they didn't do that until after Ravenshield.
No, Ravenshield was still the last of the.
I mean, yeah, but they had that on console too.
They did, yes, they
and
did.
I will say it was quite good on console.
I say the early consoles were like that as well. It's just they later on.
It was It was like the 360 ones. As soon as COD 4 came out, like that was it. Shooters were changed forever.
Yeah, it's like everybody said, "Oh, let's just copy." They don't have because that's so okay. They make games be really popular. Great, okay. Doesn't mean you have to copy them.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a group of who love your game and don't like that game, but you're just going to say, "Well, we're just going to copy them because it's obviously what the popular formula is." You don't have to just copy the leader of the pack all the time. Yeah. And I still think there's a market out there for a more. I mean, Armour proves it. Again, Armour. I don't think Armour's. Did they release Armour on the consoles? I can't remember if they did or not.
I don't know. They might have released a variant of it, but I don't know.
Yeah, I know Operation Flashpoint got released on console. I don't remember if Armour ever did or not. But Armour is definitely is definitely the opposite end of the spectrum. It's a very unfair game. You play Armour, you basically are looking to get punished.
You're battle hardened by the time you finish it.
You can get took up by a bullet from a kilometre away.
Sure.
It's a really unfair game, but it's realistic. It's a military simulator. It's designed to be like that. It's meant to be like that. It's meant to be run and gun doesn't work in it. You can try, but it won't get very far, like it would in real war.
Sure.
So it's. I think that's just why, and it sounds to be the same thing has happened with your Monster Hunter, where they've gone towards quick ward that get those endorphins running quickly in the player's head, and let's take away some of the more complicated aspects. And
I mean, don't get me wrong, Monster Hunter never had like a huge amount of depth to it because it started on PlayStation 2, but the taking away the little bits that it did have to make it quicker, to make combat faster. It's like, as you say, some of the thrill was finding the monster, learning its patterns, learning its path, learning where it nests and stuff like that. Where does it sleep? Where does it go to feed? Because it can get its own stamina back. It has a stamina bar as well. So you have to, you could learn where does it go to feed. Well, if it's running away, it might be going to the nest, or depending on what tail it has, is it dribbling, foaming at the mouth, and it might be hungry. So then it has to go and get stamina back. So it'll waddle off to go and feed. So if you know where the feeding point is, go there. If it's got to go to sleep, well, then you know where it nests, go to where the nest is at. All of that kind of vanished in Monster Hunter World. I should also say, thinking about it, everyone says Dark Souls hard. Okay? I think Monster Hunter is probably harder than Dark Souls. And it's more fucking brutal than Dark Souls. That combat role you do in Souls that's Monster Hunter. That's classic Monster Hunter. Now, don't get me wrong, once you've geared up and you've got practice and you learn the monster's patterns and the attacks, you'll be blazing through Monster Hunter in no time flat. But until you do, those games will be Dark Souls hard.
Yeah.
And that's what I liked. I liked those games to have a challenge. I liked those games to just grab you by the balls. You didn't always have to upgrade your gear either, so you could just run into that next fight, know that a monster would sideswipe you, and you were fucking dead. And that's what made it fun. But that's not how it works in World. I mean, I can take a full ball, like World and in Rise. I mean, I can take a full blast hit from a monster at the start of the game and maybe only lose 1/10 of my health bar. So I've got plenty of time to recover and heal, and because healing items are plentiful in Rise and World, it just it got really easy. Whereas in Monster Hunter 1, as an example, I went into a fight completely undergeared. The monster hit me and over half of my health just disappeared in one shot. I was just like, oh my fucking god, like how am I going to win this? Well, that was classic Hunter for you. You had to practice, you had to learn, you had to get good.
Yeah. You'll die again and again and again until you get
Yeah.
where you need to be.
If you don't learn it, you don't get it. If you don't progress, if you don't think about it, you don't learn the patterns, you don't prepare for the fight, you're stuffed. So, and that's the kind of stuff they took away. They super simplified it to make it more action based, and they took away that slow, methodical,
Yeah.
But Rise is still good. Still good, but if you're up for playing some Monster Hunter on
I'll give it a go.
the game nights, that'll be fucking fantastic. I will recommend hooking up a control pad though.
Okay, fair enough. I've got a control pad, so yeah, chuck it on the spreadsheet.
Will do. Fantastic. Right, well, what have you been playing, Ram?
Well, so I've still been sort of finishing off Disco Elysium, so I don't want to get back into that because I spent a lot of time on that last time. So I thought I better play something a bit different, something I thought picked up so quite quick and short. So I played this week a game called Stories Untold.
Okay.
It's originally was released, from what I understand, it was originally a single episode was released. It was 4 episodes, each of which is about half hour long. So you can do the whole game in a couple of hours.
Sure.
I literally breezed through it on Tuesday evening in a couple of hours. And each level, as it were, it's a little indie game. It's made in Unity. It's definitely made in Unity. It has the Unity. I suspect it was made in the free version of Unity because it has the Unity icon which is the default icon you get. We made a game in Unity that appears the taskbar, because also got second screen. I can see the taskbar. I can see the little Unity icon there. So, oh yeah, you bet. And the little Unity splash screen where you have the default set controls, and the controls are all still there, but you don't use any of them. They just not. But that's the default set that comes with a default Unity project.
Sure.
They're just not. So it's definitely a little indie game. So I wasn't expecting a lot from it. I thought I'll give it a go. I'm not expecting a lot from this. That's all I set the tone for. This is some sort of little Unity project. I'm not gonna. This is sort of making me think of. I can't remember that game I played last year. That really pretentious, artsy game. That guy with all his dreams. I can't remember what it was called. It was basically. I've done a Unity tutorial on this. I'll therefore make that level my game.
Yeah, sure.
And then I'll release the game and charge people for it and be all pretentious about it when people don't get it and like, oh, shut the fuck up, mate. No one cares. It was like it had whole like monologues where he's just talking about what makes his game special and stuff. It's like, no, mate, it's just a Unity tutorial. They teach this on the Unity website. There's nothing special here. You ain't done anything. Just fuck off.
Yeah, I get it.
But you're being a typical teenage angsty thing, but they have the audacity to put it on Steam. As a project to show what you can do, fine. It's like I'm going to rant, so I'm going on a rant here about a game which I can't remember what it was called now, which is what it deserves. So, Stories, it's 4 episodes, each of which is a different style of game. They play different. They play quite differently. But they also tend to sort of have callbacks to the original. I'd say that so the first one episode is called A House Abandoned, which is basically you are playing a text adventure. And
I love text adventures.
Yeah, this is basically it's only a little text. It's not very big, it's not very in depth. But you're playing a little text adventure, and you start. But they've set it up so that you are on your screen. It looks like I'd say sort of 1970s sort of like set up. So you've got an old TV, you've got a little computer system which is loading the game off a tape. Mm-hmm. You've got like some picture frames, you've got a little lamp and so forth.
Game of the year.
Yeah, and the game, and then on the TV, the text adventure loads up. And then you're playing a text adventure. You're typing go here, go there, and so forth. And you'll play it. And it's weird.
I'd love it if go here, go there, and so forth was the way you actually beat the game. That'd have been great.
That would be good. It isn't, unfortunately. But, it's say this, use this, that sort of thing. What a text adventure works like.
Basic Python engine and...
Yeah. I have to say that was surprisingly effective, actually, at creating an atmosphere. Even I think the fact that they've gone hassle of sort of dressing it up actually works really well. I was playing through this and I was actually getting quite into it. And there's a twist sort of halfway through which I won't say what it is, but it works fairly well. It worked really well. It was like there was a bit where it did make me sort of it's meant to be a horror game, and it did make my skin goosebump for a split second. Like, oh, that was not what I was expecting, because it's a bit weird what's going on. I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. So that's the first one. That's quite neat. The second one is set in a laboratory, and you are some sort of technician or something on doing research. You're doing some research on an artifact that they found, and you've got to basically do experiments, and you have like a big vat of like, there's like an X-ray machine, there's a drill, there's like a TV monitor and a camera, there's a waveform generator, there's like an amplifier and stuff, and you have to basically read the instructions on what they want you to do. Like they'll say, okay, we want you to test the subject with a laser at this wavelength. You have to go configure all the experiments or stuff, and then you begin the experiment, and you can see the results on the screen and so forth. And so that's a bit more involved, because you actually you've still got your computer-based interface, but you're sort of switching between that and this sort of like more depth view. That's really quite neat, because you can sort of like, you know, configure stuff and so forth. It is so you can't go wrong. You can't, if you make it won't let you, unless you got configured right, it won't work. There's like a basically set at the start to start, oh well, we have to sort of dual configure it. So unless your configuration matches ours, we won't let you do the experiment. And so there's a little button you have to press to actually start it. It won't let you do it until you press up. But you do this sort of like various stages of this experiment on this object, gradually work your way into it and find out what it is. And yeah, and again, it's got sort of a twist or halfway through where it all goes basically weird and strange and plot, and suddenly you jump back into a text adventure game again, which is really weird, because you're sort of like playing a text adventure game back to how it was originally. It's very strange, very weird, very strange.
Sure.
I mean, God, this is a bit weird, because you're trying to think, what's this game trying to sort of teach me? And these do seem to be sort of tied together, each story. Then the third one is you're at I'm guessing some sort of Arctic relay station or radio relay station or something. You're in the middle of nowhere, somewhere snowy. I think it might be sort of like Greenland type place, somewhere snowy. And you are basically being sent radio transmissions with a frequency, and you've got a little radio tuner. You can tune the frequency in, and you might hear like code words and stuff.
Right.
And you have and in the corner of the room, you have a little microfiche.
Oh, God.
I remember.
I know what they are.
And it works just like a microfiche. Literally, you have to sort of spin through it, and you have to like zoom in and refocus it and look around it. It works just like a microfiche does.
Mm-hmm.
It's really weird. But that's like what it looks like someone's done is they've took this sort of like operations manual and they've turned to a microfiche. So it's like, and it's got that sort of like grainy, badly photocopied and scanned in sort of look to it. Like you get like, you can like even see like the holes where like it's been had. When you focus on something that's got holes.
Yeah, and it's literally you've got these random like kind of ghost holes in a page.
And
it's always on a squiff.
Yes, they are. They're all on a squiff and so forth. And there's bits where like you'll get to then like the appendix is like landscapes. You have to sort of like rotate the view of the microfiche round. And that is a surprisingly complicated section, because it's not just getting like just because you basically have to get a frequency sent in. That then gives you either numbers or a code phrase like that, which then allows you to access like sort of the frequency. It allows you like sort of like confirm that you're the right person to receive the frequency, and then you have like a section where you have to fill out like a set of 3 command prompts on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And they start off easy, but they start like having variables in it. It's like, okay, so for the final, and basically you'll have like, okay, here's your code word. You go to your microfiche, there'll be like pages labeled for all the different code words. And it's like, okay, for this code word, these are the command prompts you need to enter in. Oh, this one here, where X and Y, you need to replace it with these variables, which you get by like multiplying this by this and so forth. And you have to work it out as you go along. and there's bits with Morse code, there's bits with the alphabet. It's a surprise. That was probably the hardest section. The Morse code bit really got me because I've got my dots and my dashes and ups and around. What sounded to me like dots were actually dashes,
Sure.
and so I was completely in the wrong ballpark. I did have to Google it because I couldn't figure that one out. Because I realised my mistake after I Googled it, and I said, I see why I've gone wrong now.
Yeah, I get you.
That's also the first one we actually get up and actually walk about for the first time. You actually get to, whereas before you've been stuck in front of a screen, this one you actually get to walk about. And again, it builds a story of something really bad has happened. And again, the atmosphere it generates is really good because there's radio communication between other stations, but you're stuck in this little base. It's cold, it's wintry outside, and they're like saying, well, make sure you keep your doors locked. There's something weird going on here. And, and the sort of message you get up on the screen are really weird, like, oh, confirmation accepted, everything's been launched. It's like, what the fuck have I launched? It's all this sort of stuff is going on. It's really, I mean, it probably didn't help that I had some cans of cider, and I was playing this quite late at night, and it's like, oh, it was actually find it slightly creepy.
You were starting to run on the edge of your brain, going a bit fizzy.
Yeah, it was, yeah. Episode 4, now I'm not going to go into episode 4 depth because episode 4 ties the previous 3 together.
Okay.
And the big sort of revelation of episode 4, which to be fair, and this is the only bad part about episode 4, is that you work out very quickly what's the sort of the storyline. You understand what's going on very quickly. Within about a few minutes of play, you've worked out what's happened.
Okay.
But you have to keep playing through it to get to the actual
revelation. You've already figured it out, but you have to get to the point where the story tells you what it is, so that they can actually progress. Yeah.
And they push they don't drip feed it enough at the start, so you realise way too I think they were trying to be sort of such about to like give you the final answer, but I figured out really quickly what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But it really neatly ties together all the previous 3 episodes. Really neatly ties them all together. Really, they come lovely to the little package. It works really well. And I have to say, I played this. I played it all through one evening. Got to the end. It's like, I'm really impressed. This is like I went to this expecting basically really basic and crap. My first Unity game, but it was so nicely done. It lulled me to false security. Because of all the default controls and the fact and the icon had been changed. I was like, I'm really impressed by that. That was really fun. I found it particularly really great fun. I'd say it's a sort of puzzle game is probably the best way to describe it. There's no sort of like kill states in it. You can't really go wrong.
So what you're saying is it's not really the tools that you have. It's you got to be if you're a creative motherfucker, you're going to be able to bang out something decent even with the most basic of tools.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. This is published by Devolver Digital.
Oh, right.
Who obviously famous for Hotline Miami, but they also publishing other people's stuff as well. And obviously I believe they published your game you played last week or the week before, Loop. Here, I think they published that. Mm-hmm. I believe. But yeah, they published this game. But I was really, really pleased, and even like the quality of sort of cutscene graphics. Because it's every episode starts with like this sort of like intro sequence, like from like a 70s sci-fi show.
That's cool.
But it's the same every single time as well, and it has created by, and it puts like the people who made the game get put up like as like creative directors and all this sort of stuff. It's like the sci-fi, as if you're playing like episode. I think it feels like meant to be playing episodes of a sci-fi show almost.
Sure.
But yeah, very neatly done. I wasn't expecting the sort of twist at the end, but I saw the twist was in episode 4 fairly quickly, but it wasn't what I was expecting it to be.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So I realised it. It's currently $6.99 on Steam, and do you know what? I'm going to say, it's actually worth it because it is so neatly done, so polished actually in many ways, despite some of the more weird bits about it. It's so neatly polished. And so if you like a more story, it's a story-based puzzle game. And it was a good way to spend a couple hours of an evening playing through it.
Sure.
So I would actually recommend it as a game for $6.99. You can. I spent that on. I spent it on lunch, so
No, I get that groove.
Yeah. So I would recommend it. But yeah, really neat game.
Cool.
Cool. Anything else on you guys?
Nah, it's everything, man.
Oh, cool. Well, I think the only thing I should have left to mention is I've actually been watching an anime. I know.
Another one? I'm going to have to start checking your temperature. Jesus Christ, you're turning into a weeb.
I know. It's terrible, isn't it? So what caused me to watch this, I watched a film a couple of weeks ago called The Old Guard, I didn't like. And it's a film about people who are immortal. They can't die. If you shoot them, they go down for a second, they wake back up and get up again.
Okay.
And carry on. They can't die. And it sort of explores what this means to humanity. They've been around sort of early times. And I'd heard about it. I'd seen some clips from in the previous sort of YouTube. They said, "Oh, actually, it's very similar to this anime called Ajin, Demi Human." So I thought, well, I'll check that out, see what that's like. See if because I felt the film hadn't really explored it properly, hadn't really answered it. I thought, well, let's see if the anime people, they're not based on anything similar. They're just a similar premise.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if they do more in depth. Let's see what they come up with. Because I do find animes generally are quite good at exploring different aspects of it. They're very good at having a very simple central plot idea.
Yeah.
And they explore it. I find they're very good at doing that. So I watched it, and it's a serial premise. It's set 17. So basically, in the story, when you join this story, it starts off 17 years previous to present day, and they are talking about this person who they're fighting. It starts off in Africa. And this person who's fighting, same thing. Whenever they shoot him, he just gets up again and carries on fighting. And I think they call him the Warrior of God. I think they call him.
Mm-hmm.
He's got some sort of name because everybody's just terrified to fight him because he just gets back up again. Eventually, he sort of ends with him being captured. That's when he's the first agent. The first one is their first identified as a people, well, they call them sort of semi-humans in the thing, but he's the first one to identify. These are people who basically don't die.
Sure.
And it's set sort of jump 17 years later, and the basic idea is they're sort of saying that these people who are being sort of captured and so forth, and there's not many about. They don't know when there's about that. They know quite a few of them exist. They don't know why they exist. They're taught about in school and stuff. They're sort of modern phenomena. But they're sort of like, because you don't know you're an agent until you die, and then they don't have any way to identify them or anything, because you can't just shoot people to see if they're an agent or not.
Yeah, sure.
So they go on, they basically, but in their sort of universe, they're generally regarded as not human, because humans die when they get killed. So these guys aren't really human, which means, hey, actually, the government might as well capture them. And
they'll start fucking about with them and treating them like meat. And like if you're in a war scenario, you'd send them to do the dirty jobs because you know that they're not really disposable. They can't be disposed of.
Well, that's what the government do with them. The government, although they deny it, they use things like weapons research.
Sure.
Like they'll test new weapons out on them, see how it affects them. They'll sort of throw grenades at them and see how effective the weapons are.
Yeah, cruelty means nothing to something that can't die, but obviously their psyche they'll start to crumble over time because they're suffering constantly.
Yeah, exactly. So there aren't many about. So you follow this main character who I've completely forgotten the name of. This little kid, as it's always because from what I can understand, anime, the main character is always a teenage boy. That's all that
often happens. Yeah,
as far as I can tell, that's always the main character. So
that's usually because in Japan, you'd usually find characters older than that in say slice of life stuff because once you turn 25, you're considered old and done.
Fair enough.
Fair
enough. So he basically shortly after he's just going about his day-to-day life and so forth. He gets unfortunately run over by a van.
That
and then he
sucks.
does, and then he doesn't die. And then at that point, everybody knows it, and he knows what he is, and everybody knows what he is, and he suddenly realizes, actually, shit, they're coming for me.
Yeah.
So he just runs. He just goes for it, and he runs. And he has to call up for help, basically, someone to help him get there. A close friend who he did know, who basically won't turn him in. But all his friends at school he knows he can't trust, because there's a rumor going around, there's like a 10 million yen reward if you capture an agent and give it to the government.
Yeah.
So people are really keen to capture them. So he's basically has to run. And so the first few episodes of the season is basically him running, trying not to get captured. He gets contacted by this chap, another agent called Sato, who is an old guy. Now, it's not explained, because Sato's in his 50s. So the first one appeared 17 years previous. Clearly, they've been around a lot longer than that. So something's either happened 17 years previous, or something's going on with these guys. So this guy called Sato basically contacts him to say, hey, we can help you out. But he learns pretty quickly after meeting that actually this guy, he's a little bit of an extremist. He is sort of the opinion that Asian are better, so we should just be off our own, do our own thing, have our own nation all by ourselves, fuck everybody else, we're better than them.
Sure. Which
is understandable, because he's basically had to rescue someone. He's sort of psychic. He's rescued from a government lab, and explored. So he is, so you can sort of understand where he's coming from, but it's the methods he takes to it. And he becomes and it's a minor plot spoiler, but it's pretty clearly, you get it fairly on. He sort of becomes the antagonist in the story.
It's kind of a Planet of the Apes kind of groove. One of them is abused and then becomes the villain because he was abused and feels that he's better than everyone else and fuck them. So
I don't think, first of all, he explains he personally was never abused, but he has rescued quite a few people who have been.
But yeah, he's had to watch his own kind suffer, and there's only so much of that you're going to take before you go,
exactly.
Why are we taking this from these people? Like, we have something they don't, they need us, fuck them.
Yeah. And the other sort of thing that these Asian have is these things called ghosts. And I've been told, not having watched this, I've been told they plot-wise, work very similar to the stands in JoJo. Having not watched JoJo, I don't know how it is. But
JoJo might be a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah. I don't feel I'm ready for JoJo. So, but basically they can summon these, somewhat voluntarily, these stands, which is almost like another version of them. And some people can control them. They can actually control their stands. I'm not going to say they're called IBMs. I think they call them. They can control they can control these to some extent. They can talk through them. But normal non-Asians can't see them unless you're being focused on by them. So if you're a normal human, you can't see these.
It's the same as JoJo stands, yeah.
But if you do see them, it means you're about to die because they're focusing on you. And it's only sort of like when they're really like, I'm coming for you, that you can see them, and then you're about to die.
Sure.
So they are, but they use them for communication. They can use these for guys for communication. They'll go. So there's a bit where he gets alone. He basically sort of gets like a group of Asians together, but he doesn't have their real people turn up. Instead, all these guys send their IBMs there, and one of them just like announces. They chat to them all, talk to them all, and off they go. But no one can see them.
Sure.
So you can have these big meetings and stuff, and they use them for that. And you can also one guy can actually sort of because they basically sort of it's more like astral projection. They're actually remotely controlling these guys. And one guy uses them they all use them be like sort of a shooter with a gun. They can use them as like a second shot type thing. But not everybody can control them very well. Some people when they first there's sort of taught that sometimes these IBs can go rogue almost and start doing their own thing with their own minds, as it were. So that's sort of like their secondary power. The fact that they can't die isn't good enough. The fact that they have these secondary powers gives them this ability to, do stuff. So that's sort of the general premise of it. Now, I'm going to be honest, it doesn't quite work.
Okay.
So it sounds good on paper, but the trouble is, so first of all, they made the mistake actually, from a story point of view, where the bad guys are trying to do something bad, and the government trying to stop them are run by idiots. The military units they have to try and stop them are run by idiots. I mean, there's some cool bits in it, but they don't. There's a bit where they capture the guy and basically to stop him, they want to keep him down. So to stop him reviving, and we're now getting to sort of spoiler territory here. Just to start with,
Okay.
we're getting to spoiler territory here. Okay. To stop him reviving, they shoot him every few seconds. So every time he's about to start revive, they shoot him again.
They should have just
So
knocked him the fuck out.
Well, that's what I said. Why don't you just knock him? They
Why don't you just drug him?
Well, that's what they normally do. They normally tranquilize people. That's like capture agents. They use tranquilizers. But what's interesting is they can't use too many because, unlike nearly every other form of media out there, they know that nearly all media out there, if you get hit by a tranquilizer dart, you go down and you're fine. You go to see you're fine. In reality, if you get hit by a tranquilizer dart, designed for, like, say, anything that's not designed for even a human, even if it's designed for him, there's a good chance you're going to die because every person is different. The amount of tranquilizers knock me out is probably not the same talk
Yeah,
you
for
out.
sure. If you go to a hospital, they actually have to weigh you in and check all this shit out. You can't just guess and
the tranquilizers they use on big animals, well, you're guaranteed to be knocked down. They also have to use those tranquilizers secretly, and this is the most bullshit bit of red tape I think I've ever heard in an anime exhibition. Why can't we use a tranquilizer on them? Well, because technically only can be legally used by veterinarians, so we can't use them within the public.
Yeah, I'll give you that. That's bullshit.
That's bullshit. It's like I'm pretty sure.
Are you watching this subbed, dubbed?
Dubbed?
I'm wondering if that's how it was in the original, or whether or not they.
I was told to watch a dub because the subtitles are completely wrong.
Oh.
The subtitles, the person who's with the subtitles, I don't think he's got an English degree because
Netflix?
they just. It is Netflix, unfortunately.
Ugh.
They don't make any sense whatsoever. So I'll be watching the dub version. Dub version is actually the voiceovers are pretty good. They work actually quite well, to be fair.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Dubs have got a lot better. Just sometimes they tend to fuck around with plot.
Maybe so, but for what I've read, it just doesn't make that. I just like the idea of like. I'm pretty sure if you says, well, we can capture this agent as a tranquilizer, therefore now make it legal.
We're more than allowed to shoot the shit out of someone, but fuck, man, tranking him.
We can machine gun him down. That's fine. That's perfectly acceptable.
In the middle of the high street, fuck you!
But we can't use a tranquilizer now because only vets are allowed to use them. That's a little bit of a bullshit reasoning there.
That's all right, mate. I happen to be a failed medical student, and I became a vet. I also happen to be a top-class soldier.
Yeah, there you go. By coincidence. So they keep shooting every few seconds, and it's like, but they're taking him to like a van to transport him, but they're like moving him like at a snail's pace. Like, just fucking run with him. There's like 6 of you holding him. Just move quickly. This is like a medivac. Keep beyond that within seconds. Mm-hmm. But you're going to walk at a snail's pace and just shoot him every second. And they're firing towards each other, which is even more weird. It's like, oh god, these guys just don't know what they're doing. This is meant to be like sort of the elite, not military, but police units, at least elite. Because again, there's a military unit designed to fight these people, but they're a secret as well for reasons. I don't know what. Yeah. So.
Well, because obviously you don't want people to know that you're abusing the fuck out of a group of people. Because hey, who's to say that your child isn't one, and they're going to take away your child and fuck them up?
But at the same time, if you're being attacked, at this point, agents are for terrorist attacks. So at this point, you think to yourself, maybe you could justify. We have if we have got military units to fight other humans. So I think you could justify it to fight a form of human who can kill you without looking at them, and or kill you with their invisible ghost and can't die. I think you have justification to have a unit designed to attack them.
Really?
Tackle them.
I don't know, man. I don't know, because that's going to make the plot like really, really like obvious.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can do that.
Yeah. I mean, they're basically they are escort. So basically, the bad guys are forming this sort of like terrorism campaign. The trouble is, the bad guys never really suffer any setbacks. They never really enough. Any media where the good guys always win or the bad guys always win is generally boring. If every fight they go to they win, it's boring because there's no real conflict there. And the trouble is, the bad guys always win in this. Every time that they think they've got a plan to defeat them, by sheer massive amounts of foreplanning, they know how to counter that plan. So it never feels like the good guys have no little mini wins along the way.
Yeah.
So it gets actually tedious. After a while, if I'm honest, it gets just tedious.
Can I be honest with you? I find that a lot of anime that is coming out now even for me, is falling under that category. It's falling into that pitfall. They're either over the top gruesome for no reason at all, because we seem to think that that's a thing. Like, every character needs to bleed everywhere. Every character needs to commit suicide. Every character needs to be raped. Every character needs to be morally void. Every character has to be racist. Or, I don't know, every story just has to have nothing in it. Like a 3-year-old wrote it, and now we're going to make it into an anime.
Yeah. I think also, it's what I was basically getting like. It's like, I was just like, he's winning again. Of course he is. Like, at least let them capture one of his crew. Okay, don't catch the big main guy, but at least get one of the crew in. Just let them have some attrition. Let them have some losses. Let this not be a one-sided fight completely all the time. And do you know what I actually also realised watching this? Because one of the things they do, if one of their people is like tranquilized, if their allies will just shoot them, because if you're tranquilized, you're down. But if you get shot, you die. They actually call it resetting.
Ugh.
As so just reset. So they just shoot each other to sort of stop that happening. And I suddenly realised watching this, as all these like memes people thought, from the good sides, this is for the good guys. This is what it's like to be an NPC in Payday 2.
Yeah, it's about right.
Just think about it. In Payday 2, if you're the police, you're facing these people who are just mowing you down, and every time you think you've gone on the ground, someone just touches them, they get back up again.
That's about right.
Like, shit, I'm watching this from the police side of Payday 2. It just suddenly occurred to me. It's like, shit, or like Vermintide. This is what the Skavens see. It's like, we can't fucking kill them. They just keep getting back up.
Bless them.
But it goes on like this for right till the end. And
how long is the series?
It's 2 seasons, I think 13 episodes in each.
That's not bad. So those 2 seasons, that's a standard anime season, 26 episodes.
Yeah, 20 minutes, and each episode's about 20 minutes long.
Yeah, that is a standard anime show, one run, 26 episodes.
All right, there you go. So although it does end on an open-ended cliffhanger to do a 3rd season, but the end of it does feel close. Does sort of feel closed off, and then they leave it open for a 3rd season.
Sure.
I think a couple of issues with it. One, bad guys always just win. It just doesn't seem to make sense. I don't think they properly explored the ideas. And I actually realized, talking about the idea of like immortality, you die, you get back up. There's so many what ifs you have to ask in that situation. So one thing that they don't explore in this, at least not initially, unless you get to the very end, which actually the Old Guard, which is actually out of the 2, the worst of the 2, did explore, is that in the Old Guard, this is said in the film, somebody gets put in the Middle Ages, they get put in an Iron Maiden and thrown to the bottom of the sea. And if you're mortal, you drowned, you revive. You then drown again, you revive. That's horrific.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's horrific. They don't come across the idea until the end of the season in Ajin, Demi Human. They also I was like saying, what happens? So you have limbs cut off, they just regrow. What happens to the other part of the limb? Is it still there? Does it stay? Apparently, it stays behind, but like the majority regrows. So the closest they come to death is have your head cut off. Have your head cut off. Because your head's cut off, your head stays long enough to see your body revive, but then you die.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I still think that's a bit tenuous as well, because from the body's point of view, the head regrows, they doesn't know any different. Do you see what I'm saying? It doesn't. That person doesn't know any different. So it's a bit tenuous.
It's
But
kind of like
so
when
what-
that game you played with the copies, and they're like, hang on a minute, you are there, but then the other thing's like, well, it's not. But you
yeah,
know,
but the copies can talk to each other. They can still there. They can sort of. That's a bit more. That's actually explores a bit more in depth. Whereas your head's
sure,
actually you're going to die.
yeah, sure.
But what happens? So I think myself, what happens if you get crushed? What happens if you get incinerated? What happens then? What happens in those situations? How does it work there? They don't explore that, and I believe the manga actually goes.
Yeah, I was
It
gonna
goes
say,
into quite.
I wonder if that's just stuff that was in the manga that isn't in the.
Yeah, the manga's definitely got more chapters after this, so presumably, plus they explore a bit more in the manga. I don't know, but I'm sort of thinking, well, what about? And I saw all these what if signs that they don't really ever properly explore because no one really gets injured in such a way that they have like really severe injuries. Most of them get just stabbed or shot when they die and
Yeah,
then come back. So they don't really have really massive injuries like that. So that felt like you've missed a bit. You've missed a plot here. You've missed a. This is stuff you should be exploring fairly early on in my book
yeah,
because you want to find the limits of what you can and can't do. Because I'm pretty sure if you incinerate someone down to ash, I can't see you coming back from that.
hmm
I don't know how you would, but it'd be interesting if they could. The other thing is, it's a bit weird, is the animation. It's CGI,
ugh,
but designed to look like animated. And it's very weird, actually, that for large chunks of it, you don't really notice because your brain fills in the gaps. But the trouble is, they've kept it like at 16 frames, but it feels like it's all like because obviously anime is usually double framed.
hmm
You know, the frames aren't. It's not technically 20, although it's on paper 24 or whatever frames per second. Actually, they're PAL, aren't they? So they'll be 24 frames per second. But they often double frames up to save animation time. They
hmm
work on twos, don't they? So the frame rate's technically lower. The trouble is, in CGI, that looks wrong. They've tried to sort of emulate it. So particularly when people like, it's actually ironically when it's fast movement, it's fine. It looks
yeah.
fine to me. When it's more slow, like someone just turning around slightly, that looks weird. It's funny actually, but for the most part, it's not really noticeable. I mean, there's some really neat fight scenes in it. I mean, there's a really cool fight scene early on where this guy Sato, and it's very fluidly done. It's very really fluidly done. He gets shot by like a in his arm by a tranquilizer, so he gets an arm, his knife out, just hacks his arm off,
Right.
so he can't be so he can't get tranquilized. He then gets shot with another one, so he gets a gun and shoots himself in the head to revive himself, and we grow his arm. So that scene there works really nice. It's really fluid and flows really nicely. But then I said you'll just have bits where they're just talking stuff. It just looks wrong, and it's a weird choice that they've gone to the route of okay, let's do the CGI, make it look like it, but let's put the frame that's all make it a bit juttery, and it doesn't look right. And it makes you wonder if like different teams work on different bits because it's varies.
That does happen.
It does. There's a it's very variable about the quality of it. It makes you wonder if one group would like doing the action stuff, and one group would doing the like more mundane stuff, or how they split it down. But it's because I watched the first episode, I thought this doesn't seem right. There's something wrong about it. It doesn't feel right as an animation. Some animation is just a bit weird, and that's why I looked and found it was CGI.
Now, I'm curious if what are you watching this on?
I watched this on Netflix.
No, but I mean, what are you watching it on? Your phone,
Oh,
your computer,
PC.
your
Yeah,
PC?
PC, yeah.
Could it have anything to do with your monitor settings?
Possibly, but I've seen a lot of other people say a similar thing.
Oh, okay, fair enough. And
So,
Japan is 30 frames a second.
are they? Are they NTSC in Japan?
Yes.
Oh, right, okay. I was trying to work out. I couldn't remember what they were, but I'm sure. I know they generally work on twos in animation for well, most animations done on twos.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think they've tried. I think they've tried to emulate that, and it doesn't quite work.
No, I get you.
Because I think sometimes when you think, oh, let's just make it a complete copy of something, you've got to say actually it doesn't always work if you do a straight copy. So it's in the end, it was like a very meh series.
Yeah.
Had some interesting idea. It had some interesting bits in it. But overall, it was pretty. I think they could have done more with it.
I get you. And I
Uh,
just want to go back and say my complaints with anime is I just honestly think right now, because there are so many different places trying to stream anime, it's a race to the bottom. Every single manga that comes out gets an anime these days, and I don't know if 2/3 of them even really deserve them. And that the way that they're adapted these days, again, race to the bottom, so much stuff is missed out.
do you think that's actually also partly because? Do you think there's always been like bad animes out there, but because of the sort of like time it takes to get them animated and particularly like subbed and dubbed, do you think there's like a delay? There was like a filter for stuff we saw over here.
Well, I mean, we didn't get a huge amount over here.
That's what I mean.
You
So
know, we
only
so
saw
so.
the
Oh,
cream
no, I
before it
mean
came
there
over.
was a lot of crap that came out over here, but now I mean like literally, if you look at like anime by season, and you can go onto websites and that to look up, you know, what is coming out this anime season, the spring 20 whatever anime season. You're like, holy fucking shit, there's like a billion different shows. This wasn't a thing back in the day. You'd actually have to, you know, as you say, you'd have to actually find something that was actually worth putting out there. Now, I could write a light novel and bam, there it is. It's an anime. It'll get an anime. I was like, it doesn't need to be.
I think there's also a side effect of when you've got lots of television networks and out there, and or in the case of now streaming services out there, all with budgets, all with money to put out to things, is by nature you're going to make more stuff's going to get made.
Yes, well, no, that is literally it. And then you find like, you know, oh, Netflix are willing to invest in this show. Why? Then Crunchyroll are like, well, we want this one, and Funimation are like, well, we want that one, and it's like, so they're just literally going, well, these are all the licenses that are coming up right now. Fuck, grab everything you can, because we need exclusive content to get people on our platforms. It's got nothing to do with the quality of the content, just that it's content.
Which is shooting yourselves in the foot, because the people who, if you are a bit more cautious about what you put on there, you will get a reputation of, if it's on XYZ streaming service and it's their own made stuff, it's probably going to be pretty solid.
Mm-hmm.
But that reputation will come, but you've got to weather the initial storm. And unfortunately, a lot of, when you're a for-profit organisation, a lot of companies are like, oh, I don't like that idea.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was. I'm not disappointed that I watched it, but I wouldn't rewatch it.
Sure. What if there's another season come out to maybe expand on it? Would you give it a try, or?
It might be one of the things that, oh, I've got nothing else to watch, I'll just watch that then.
Sure.
Catch it. Luckily, the good thing about anime, actually, the really good thing is it doesn't take very long to get through it. Because realistically, each episode's only about 20 minutes long. By the time you cut off the incredibly long title sequence they all seem to have, the incredibly long ending sequence, and the recap at the start, and possibly the preview at the end, well, you're probably looking about sort of 18 to 20 minutes of actual stuff. Such a fact, I burned through this in 2 days.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all.
So that's the only good thing, is you can burn through this. So you can pretty quickly, and I enjoyed it enough to keep watching it.
Yeah,
I could,
which is fair.
I enjoyed it enough to keep wanting to watch and get to the end of it. It's just afterwards I was like, yeah, it wasn't very good.
Sure.
So, but yeah, so there you go. I thought you'd be pleased.
Oh, good job. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I found myself kind of swinging more towards slice of life anime and stuff like that in recent history. I fucking despise most anime that comes out these days, because it just doesn't appeal to me. There became a trend where, as I say, things just had to go really, really. I don't mind stupid over the top, but grotesque over the top really started to become a thing at some point, and I was like,
yeah,
this is the kind of thing you'd get back in, like, I don't know, 1980s, 1990s hentai. You know, this is stuff you wouldn't have in mainstream. Now all of a sudden it's in mainstream anime. So why the fuck is this a thing?
Yeah.
You know, and it didn't appeal to me. Like, the stories were really thin and stupid, but they had a long run, and so they got really popular, and it's like, ugh. And that's the kind of thing that Netflix gravitates towards too. They go for the super popular, big brand, everyone knows it anime. It's like, but there's some really good stuff that none of you are even.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, this is fairly. I mean, I think this is a fairly niche one. I believe I don't think it's a. I mean, I don't. I mean, had you heard of it before I mentioned Sell Curiosity?
No, but then I have been skipping out on TV for like the
Yeah.
last probably couple of years.
Yeah.
Like I don't watch much of anything. If anything, I have a Crunchyroll and Funimation subscription. My Crunchyroll subscription is never logged into anything, and my Funimation subscription, my wife uses it. Like I don't watch telly at all. I just don't watch it. So yeah. I don't keep up with what's coming out, what's new. If I catch like one anime every, say, 6 months, so if I catch 2 new shows a year, that's really saying something.
Fair news. Right, that's me done again.
Sure.
And I'll do some. So, remember, the hour goes on tonight. Obviously, if you listen to this podcast, which that's no good to you at all. But Skazz, the hour goes on tonight.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks for letting me know.
You're losing an hour in bed.
Mate, I don't get an hour in bed, so that means that I'm down
you're not getting no bed then.
There you go.
You're
I'll
just
be up
staying
all night.
There you go. So if anyone wants to watching up in the SuffolkRam,
Skazz.
You can join us on our next podcast on the I should have up earlier 10th of April at 21:30 GMT +1.
Yay!
Yay! British summertime! Yay!
Woo.
You enjoy us then on YouTube, youtube.com/rannerds or twitch.tv/rannerds. You can join us for our games nights as well. We do games. We're currently working our way through Green Hell, which you can join us on twitch.tv/TheSuffolkRam.
And twitch.tv/Skazzius, SK4ZZI0US.
Yeah, indeed. You can just check up our website, rannerds.co.uk. And I hope you've enjoyed this, and we look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks' time.
Rock.